And when you knock us down, we're going to get up. And on the way up, we're going to bite a kneecap off.
Go ahead and say it, Ed. Go Tigers!
When I woke up this morning, I was feeling pretty dangerous.
You like that? You like that?
F it. Jamar's down there somewhere.
In the New Orleans Saints select Marcus Davenport.
No!
Splash Brothers. Yeah.
It's playoff. Keep going, Brace.
Playoffs? Don't talk about playoffs.
If it doesn't fit, you must acquit.
Welcome to Chasing the Trophy Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm your host, Derek Sanders, coming at you for this Week 5 Start Sit Sleeper Pod. I missed it last week, just wasn't able to get to it. And Clay, same thing, a lot of stuff going on with life. So anytime we ever don't get the pod posted, be looking for the graphic on the website or the Facebook page, and that will at least update you on our picks. But we're going to get right on into it. A lot of stuff going on this week. Got some bye weeks where some people are out. Got some people that are out, just got ruled out today as it is Friday night. I'm going to go ahead and get us kicked off and get us started through all the news, injuries, and the welcome and all that. And then Clay is going to jump in a little bit. But first and foremost, let's go ahead and start off with a word of prayer. Lord, just thank you for everything you bless us with. Thank you for allowing us to just enjoy this game and fellowship in this game that you let us enjoy and hopefully use as a tool to bring people closer to you and come to know you, Lord, in some form or fashion. Just please be with Norca. She continues to go through treatments and immunizations, Lord, as she's just continuing to hopefully build that immune system up and stay healthy. Just keep a hedge of protection around her and her family as they continue to go through this phase, Lord. And just thank you for her and everything you've done in her life and just putting your hand on her. We know that without you, none of this for her would be possible. And it's just a testament to you and answering our prayers, Lord. And we just thank you for that. Just please be with Crew Tidwell and his family as he's continuing to get treatments and going through their journey there. Also, Lord, with his treatments and everything, just please be with him and his family, and just thank you for the blessings that you've given them. And just please be with Mama T as she enters this phase of life, Lord, where her body's breaking down, but you're there with her, and just give her peace and comfort along with her family and the Nord family, Miss Tanya, Lord. Just be with them and comfort them during this time, and just help them turn to you. And then also, Lord, be with the victims and the relief of the people of Hurricane. I guess it's Helene. And I thought it was Helen, but I think I heard somebody say it was Helene, Lord. But just please be with the victims and the responders, as there's just so much devastation from that natural disaster, Lord. But just let these people turn to you and just use this time to be a testament of what you can do and help them get through this time, and just give them peace and comfort that you're with them, that you're gonna get them through this situation, Lord. And just thank you for all the blessings. Just continue to let us be a light and lead and guide for you, Lord. Just everything we do be in your name, Lord. We just thank you for all our blessings. In your name we pray. Amen. All right, guys. So this is our Start Sit Sleeper Pod, where Clay and I are going to pick our top picks at each position. And we use the ESPN rankings, so, quarterbacks are going to be outside the top 5, tight ends outside the top 5, and then running backs and wide receivers outside the top 10. Most of those inside those top spots are your studs, and you want to start those, and that's the starts and the sits. And then the sleepers are going to be quarterbacks outside the top 12, running backs outside the top 24, wide receivers outside the top 24, tight ends outside the top 12, which that makes it really hard for tight ends because there's really not a lot of good tight ends, period, as it is. But these are players that, that we just have, good feelings about at this point in time, at this point in the season. we have a decent idea of what defenses are good against what and what offenses are good at producing and how and performing in certain, against certain defenses. So we're starting to get a little bit better at our start sit sleepers. But anyway, that's just a little bit of what we look into that, and not only that, but just injuries and everything else that we take into account. But first, I want to thank our sponsors: Big Reed BBQ, Mimi's Children's Boutique, Crown Detailing. Thank you guys. Thank you for supporting us. Please, y'all go support them. And our title sponsor for this episode is Big Reed BBQ. Started as a family recipe in 1986. Their mild flavor is right on time, and the spicy is just enough heat. Owner Ken Reed and Director of Marketing Andre Leonard say you can get their sauce at Doug Damona Farm and Feed, Time to Shine Detail, the Salty Brahma, the Equipment Store, and Amazon. So, I mean, who doesn't have Amazon? Get it sent right to your door, guys. And we're in the midst of football season. Maybe you're feeling good, you want to do some ribs, get you some Big Reed, slap it on there. You will not be disappointed, I promise. So thank you, Big Reed. They've been with us since the beginning, and y'all support them. We really appreciate them supporting us. And on to news and injuries. Really not a lot of news, except for there's some bye weeks. We got several teams on bye. They are the Titans and Eagles, Chargers, and Lions. Lots of big offensive players on bye this week, so that makes some of these positions kind of thin whenever it comes down to rankings and your roster. So you might be diving into your bench this week with a lot of those heavy offensive players out there. But we're going to go ahead and get started with injuries. And first, let me get my thing sorted right here. So first and foremost, Jonathan Taylor has been officially ruled out. So that means Trey Sermon's going to be getting the work, which, not a surprise. High ankle sprain. We knew he was going to miss at least 1 week, but eventually got ruled out. Alvin Kamara popped up, coming in with a limited practice on Friday, which is kind of suspicious because I'm pretty sure he practiced some this week, but he comes up with hip and ribs limiting him in practice. I would keep an eye on this. I mean, it could be just them trying to give him an easy practice before the weekend, but I would just be watching that going into the weekend. And he's going up against the number one run defense in Kansas City on Monday night. So given that the game is Monday night, they're probably just kind of giving him a break. So that's probably good news. George Kittle, questionable for Sunday with a rib injury. He returned to he's missed pretty much all week, and he came back to practice on Friday. It gives him a chance to play, but it says he's going to be game time decision. Said he was moving around well in practice, so I would just kind of keep an eye on that. Malik Neighbors was ruled out, did not clear concussion protocol. That's a big one because that means Wan'Dale Robinson is going to be the number one guy in New York and probably going to get a lot of volume. Devontae Adams got ruled out officially for Sunday's game. No shocker there, as he's requested a trade. And there's been a lot of rumors from beat writers saying that it has been said that he plans on pretty much sitting out until he gets traded. So Devontae Adams owners, sorry, a sip of water there. Getting raspy. But Devontae, this is something that I feared coming into the season. At his age, at an organization like this that's not going to go anywhere in the playoffs, he's looking to go to a team where he has a chance. And he's already come out and said he wants to go to a familiar quarterback. And that would be either Derek Carr at the Saints or Aaron Rodgers at the Jets. Supposedly, Aaron Rodgers at the Jets has been like the number one place for him, but they got to work out some kind of a trade before he plays, and he's going to be out this week. He was out last week. If he misses another week, are you getting the return on your investment where you drafted him at this point? Probably not. So that's what I feared coming in, and this seems to be what's unfolding so far. Joe Mixon, with that ankle injury, ruled out again. Really starting to seem like this must have been a high ankle sprain, even though they didn't come out and say that. But ruled out again, didn't practice at all this week. Devontae Smith, had a concussion, but he's off this week. Cooper Kupp ruled out again for this week. No surprise there. If you listen to the waiver pod, I talked a little bit about that. He pretty much would have been put on IR if it wasn't for them having so many people on IR. And apparently you can only put so many people on short-term IR, which is the 4-game absence in one season. And they have had so many people go on short-term IR that they're approaching that maximum. So that's why they're just ruling them out every week. Brian Robinson popped up on the injury report, questionable for Sunday's game with a knee injury. He returned to practice limited Friday, but Dan Quinn said that he's trending in the right way. He'll be a game time decision. It's a 1 o'clock kickoff, so keep an eye on that. Austin Eckler has cleared concussion protocol, so if Robinson ends up getting ruled out, Eckler's going to be a big time play. If you live under a rock and just have not paid any attention to the news, then you do not know, but Rashee Rice has been placed on injured reserve Thursday. They are going to continue testing next week to try to have a better idea of the severity of the injury and what their treatment plan will be going forward. I'm still completely baffled by this because doing MRI for a living like I do, seeing torn ACLs all the time. I do not know how they cannot make a call off of an MRI on his knee. Like, just don't know, because there's really one of three possibilities. It's either torn, it's partially torn, or it's not torn at all. That's the only three for an ACL. He could have other damage, and maybe he doesn't have a torn ACL, so that could be it. But either way, they're playing this really close, and it's very peculiar how they're handling it. But either way, he's on IR. He misses at least the next 4 games. Anthony Richardson, man, what a disappointment the last several games. But questionable pretty much all week with an oblique injury. He practiced limited for most of the week after he was, ruled out after only 4 snaps, or really 10 snaps or whatever last week. Let's see. It really says he's a game time decision. So I just watch that as it's coming up. If you're playing him, honestly, I wouldn't be playing him. I'd pretty much pick up any of our waiver wire candidates off that we talked about and play them over Richardson. And if you missed out on Baker, which you probably did, but he had a heck of a night Thursday night, put up 29 fantasy points, and then Kirk Cousins only put up 50, because he threw for 500 yards and 4 touchdowns out of nowhere. But that offense is really going. Kirk Cousins is probably going to be on my waiver wire episode next week, just to give you a heads up about that. But next will be Devin Singletary. All of a sudden shows up with a groin injury. Must have happened in practice, because he wasn't even on the injury report at the beginning of the week. And then now has a groin injury, doubtful for Sunday's game. So looking like he will not probably play, and that means Tyrone Tracy is going to get a heavy workload for the Seattle game Sunday afternoon. And then we got Evan Ingram, who is listed as questionable. He's pretty much been sidelined all week. He looks like he got 3 limited practices in this week, so that gives him a solid chance to return. It's pretty much probably going to be a game time decision there. At least he's a 12 o'clock game play, so keep an eye on that. David Njoku came back to practice, said he's feeling pretty good and hoping to return Sunday. Honestly, he's pretty much limited all week, and he had a scheduled day off on Thursday. But being a veteran as he is, if he's feeling good, they might let him play. Newsflash, Nick Chubb will return to practice this week. He is not coming back yet, but he did get some limited practices in while they were monitoring his workload. Oh, Kareem Hunt already limited at practice on Friday with a shoulder injury. Supposedly, if he gets in a full practice Saturday, he'll avoid injury designation. But they don't play till Monday night, so this could be another one of those things where they're just letting him take it easy. TJ Hawkinson returned to practice, so opened up his 21-day window like we talked about with Chubb the other day. So that means he's going to be back within the next 3 weeks. Practice limited has been ruled out, obviously, because he just came back, but he is back at practice, which is great news. I mean, I would expect him and Chubb back probably in the next couple weeks. Khalil Shakir got ruled out for his game already with this ankle injury that he's been dealing with for a couple weeks now. So I'm guessing they're finally decided they're just going to pretty much let him rest this week and give him a chance to let it heal. So he has been ruled out, Khalil Shakir. Zamir White, the very underachieving Zamir White for the Raiders, has been ruled out for Sunday's game. That means Alexander Madison will be the main guy. This is a groin injury for White, so who knows, how long that'll keep him out. He wasn't really doing much anyway, so there's that. Jonathan Brooks did not come back to practice this week, just FYI if anybody was looking for him. But he did not come back to practice this week. Jalen Ward has been ruled out for Sunday's game with that knee injury. Cordell Patterson has also been ruled out. So apparently Aaron Shamklin, I can't even say his name, is going to back up Najee Harris. That means Najee Harris is going to get a lot of work. Anyway, so that's that. And then Christian Watson is doubtful with that high ankle sprain. There was rumors that he was going on IR, and then now he's doubtful. So, he didn't practice all week. So I doubt there's any chance he plays. But with the way Dontavion Wicks looked, I highly suspect him to get a lot more work and maybe even take over that role in general with the way that Christian Watson cannot stay healthy. And then also Romeo Doubs is doubtful. I don't know where that came from. It says personal reasons, so he missed practice Thursday and Friday, so that's never really good. Thoughts and prayers for him, because normally personal reasons is probably, somebody sick in the family or who knows what. But either way, he missed practice Thursday and Friday, and he is doubtful for Sunday's game. So, man, Dontavion Wicks is looking really good if Dobbs and Watson miss. I really got to go think about putting him in my lineup in all my leagues now. Taysom Hill, which probably a tight end for a lot of people, questionable, was not present for the early portion of Friday's practice to the media. He looks like he's going to be a DNP on Friday, and he was DNP on Thursday, so I would keep an eye on his practice Saturday and Sunday to see if he plays Monday night, but I'd be prepared to play somebody else if needed. Also, Brandon Cooks for the Cowboys has been ruled out with an infection in his knee. Something like that. He underwent an operation on his knee last Thursday, and then now it's gotten infected, so that's never good. So Jalen Tolbert may be in for an increased workload there. And that's pretty much going to round out our injury news update. One thing that is of note, just a big deep league sleeper here, Kendre Miller for the Saints was a full participant at practice on Friday. Now, he might pull his hamstring walking from the bus to the stadium before the game Monday night, but he's a super talented young running back for the Saints, essentially supposed to be Alvin Kamara's, successor in that offense, and has just really not gotten off to a good start with his history of hamstring injuries, because he pretty much pulls a hamstring every time he thinks about playing. And Dennis Allen even made the note that he needed to be healthy to almost make the team. And I'm going to guess administration there in New Orleans, considering he was a high-valued pick just last year, said we're not going to cut him just yet because he can't stay healthy. So there is that. And that's going to round out our news and injuries. And we're going to jump right on into it. And we're going to start off with, just to give Clay a little bit more time because he's probably getting pretty close. My start for this week is going to be Geno Smith versus the Giants. And I believe that is the same start Clay has. So there you go. Both of us really like Geno this week. Going up against the Giants at home. He's the number 8 quarterback in fantasy. He's going up against the 18th worst DST against quarterbacks who just gave up 20 points, at least 20 points in their last 2 matchups to Watson. And that would be Deshaun Watson. Yes, the old man River, that hadn't been able to do hardly anything. I think that was his best game this year was against the Giants. And then Dak, who has been a little underwhelming in that offense. So Geno's offense has been way better, both of theirs, and he has been very solid every game. A great floor, not terribly high ceiling, but he's always got that potential to have that blow up game. But for the most part, you know you're going to get probably 18 to 20 points at least from him, and probably looking maybe 25 to 30 max from Geno Smith. But I mean, you can't ask for any more than that, especially on bye weeks with several of the big time quarterbacks on bye in Hurts and Goff. So Geno Smith's both our starts this week, and going right on into our sits. And my sit is going to be Patrick Mahomes. That is correct. You're probably thinking, man, this guy is crazy, but Patrick Mahomes has not been the usual Patrick Mahomes we're used to this year. And this week he's going against a New Orleans defense that has been pretty stingy for quarterbacks so far this year. They've only allowed over 11 points once to a quarterback, and that was week 2 against Dak, whenever they were blowing Dak out like 30-something to nothing. And pretty much Dallas had to just start throwing the ball like crazy, so Dak started raking in the points. And I don't think that's going to happen against this Kansas City defense. So I think just between the depletion of Mahomes' wide receiver core and the way that the game is probably going to be a little bit lower scoring, both of them are going to be leaning on the run game. I'm hoping that maybe the Saints can get the play action game going. But either way, I think it's going to be a little bit slower pace game than what we're probably used to out of both these offenses. And I think they both lean on the run a little more, which shortens the possessions and the time on the clock. Not to mention Mahomes, he's only quarterback 16 on the year so far. Like he's put up extremely pedestrian numbers all season. Like just not what you expect from Mahomes. And I just think you can find a better start elsewhere for the time being until they get whatever's going on in this offense sorted out, or maybe they don't, because I mean they've been winning. But anyway, so that's my take on Mahomes. I think some of our waiver wire additions could be started over him right now until he at least blows back up. But also, I mean, if you drafted a backup quarterback, depending on who it was, like if it was Kirk Cousins, I'd probably play Kirk Cousins over him right now, especially after he just threw for 504 touchdowns on Thursday night. So going forward, you know, he's looking really good in that offense, and I think he's going to be a better performer than Mahomes is in his offense as far as fantasy goes. So that's my sit for the week, and Clay's sit is Sam Darnold. And I completely understand this. Going up against the Jets defense, the second in the league against quarterbacks. Now, the only pushback I have against this, Clay, is that the only reason they're second. All right, so they had Purdy in week 1 when they were healthy. They lost a bunch of defensive starters to injury, but then week 2 they gave up almost 20 points to 20 points to Will Levis in Tennessee. And then now weeks 3 and 4, they gave up 6 and 8 points, but that was to Jacoby Brissett in New England and then Bo Nix in Denver, which we have not seen really do anything all year. But I did see them play on Thursday night against New England, and their defense was pretty sick. So their secondary is good. Completely understand this, Clay, but I don't think it holds Sam Darnold back, personally. I don't think he has, like, as good as he's been. I mean, the dude's put up 29, 31, 26, and 6 point per touchdown leagues the last 3 weeks. And his lowest scoring was week 1, 18 points. And he's just extremely efficient this year. 79% week one completion percentage, 65, 60, and then 71% against the Packers last week, who the Packers probably have the best secondary in the NFL right now, according to turnovers and interceptions. Now, do they have the best secondary as far as talent and coverage? Probably not. That probably does go to the Jets. But Sam Darnold's getting it done, and Kevin O'Connell is pretty much not Kevin O'Connell, sorry. Stefanski, I think, there. Anyway, either way, the head coach there in Minnesota is drawing up the game plan just right. So I get it because he is going against the Jets this week, and that's a tough matchup. Also, another one I know Clay's probably thinking about. I just seen this. Jets, Minnesota is the London game Sunday morning, so he's also traveling. And playing overseas, it kind of jacks up some of these players' routines. And Clay's probably thinking that'll affect him. I think that's a good point, too, Clay. I still think Sam Darnold's not going to be as bad as some of your other quarterbacks. I think you could do worse. But I do understand if you're being cautious with him. If you have one of our other waiver wire pickups like Geno, I definitely want to start him over Sam Darnold. So I feel you there, Clay. And then sleepers this week at quarterback. Mine is Deshaun Watson. That is correct. No, I did not stutter. No, I did not have a stroke while I was saying that. I did say that my pick is Deshaun Watson for a sleeper quarterback this week. And you're probably wondering, why would you do that? Well, because he is going up against the second worst secondary or defense for quarterbacks in the NFL in the Washington Commanders, where every quarterback so far, except for Kyler Murray last week, has had at least 22 fantasy points, including two 39 and 37-point games. So that was Baker Mayfield, then Daniel Jones, then we had Joe Burrow, then we had Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray didn't have a great week, which was last week, but before last week, 4 touchdowns, 2 touchdowns, 3 touchdowns. Like, Deshaun Watson's got plenty of talent around him. All he's got to do is start to put it together. And I will say, let's see, against the Giants, had a pretty solid week. Had 4 rushes, 26 yards, 196 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, had 20 points. Last week against Las Vegas, 75% completion percentage, 176 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, but 8 rushes for 32 yards. Okay, so I feel like he's kind of starting to improve a little bit on some of his things, and I feel like this Washington game with this not so great defense against quarterbacks and with all his weapons around him, I feel like he has, especially with Njoku coming back, or solid chance Njoku comes back. I think Deshaun Watson has a good game this week, and that's why I think he's kind of a sleeper if you're in a bind. And also, Clay had the same sleeper. Sorry, I didn't scroll down far enough to see that. But yep, Clay had Deshaun Watson as a sleeper also. So there you go, quarterbacks, guys. Starts, Geno Smith for Clay and I. Sits, Sam Darnold for Clay, Patrick Mahomes for me. And sleeper, both of us had Deshaun Watson. So there you go, a lot of similarities there for us. And then let's move on to running backs. And my start at running back, and I will be honest with y'all, whenever I made this list 2 days ago, I originally had Ramondre Stevenson as a start because it's a great matchup. I feel like New England's trying to get back to running the ball and improving that on their offense. And all of a sudden, they came out today and said Ramondre Stevenson will not start this week, which does not necessarily mean he's not going to be the main guy. They just might be, because apparently he's, all right, for one, he's fumbled every game this year so far, and they've only lost 2 of them, but they lost them in the last 2 games. And so this could be kind of a little warning shot to him, like, hey, look, we're getting, we can do without you starting the game. So sometimes old school coaches like Jerron Mayo will do something where they won't start a player on purpose because they know it's important to them, and they'll start somebody else, and then they'll bring them in the game and let them go back to their work, their workload that they're normally used to. Now, will that happen? I don't know, but they're going up against a Miami defense that's like 4th worst in the league. that just gave up 127 yards, 2 touchdowns, Tony Pollard, and then 102 yards and 2 touchdowns, Seattle, and then 106 yards and 2 touchdowns to Buffalo. I mean, are you seeing the trend here? Now we're going up against New England. Ramondre can still have a good game, but with him not starting, I took him off the list. So you get a bonus guy this week, DeAndre Swift, somebody who we seen revive himself, pretty much threw on the AED and shocked himself last week to a tune of 16 carries, 93 yards, a touchdown, and 7 catches for 72 yards last week. I mean, just exploded. The DeAndre Swift that a lot of people expected there in Chicago. Well, now he gets the great Carolina Panthers, who are the second worst in the NFL DST for running backs, and I mean the second best for running backs, to who they just gave up 131 yards and 2 touchdowns to a tune of 41 points to Cincinnati last week. And I'll tell you right now, I mean, I think DeAndre Swift's probably better than both the Cincinnati running backs. And this offense is starting to kind of click there in Chicago. So I think DeAndre Swift has a great game this week. And that's why I picked him up as my start this week. And Clay's start is Javonte Williams at running back, which is quite interesting. Somebody that has not really lived up to the hype so far, but his snap count and touch percentage has went up each week the last couple weeks. I say the last couple weeks. It was the highest it's been all season last week at the Jets. Well, this week he gets Las Vegas Raiders at home, who have given up a fair amount of points to almost every running game that they've went up against except for Cleveland last week. So we've seen Denver get their running backs involved in the passing game, and we've also seen them get they last week they gave them the ball 16 rushes for 77 yards against the Jets, who have a solid rush defense also. So you really like to see that, him getting more involved in the run game. I like that pick, Clay, there. I'm actually starting him in 2 leagues that I had him on the bench that I have bye week replacements for. So, I like that pick a lot there. Hopefully that comes true because that's going to make me feel a lot better for sure. Let's go on to sits at running back. And my sit was Zach Moss. And he's going up against Baltimore this week. Somebody we seen slowly losing carries last week to Chase Brown. And Zach Moss is also Clay's sit. So coming in there, Baltimore's third best defense against running backs. They've not given up more than 53 yards all season to running backs, and they've only given up 3 touchdowns in 4 games to running backs, which is not very much, by the way, especially this year. So last week they held James Cook to a mere 13 point. Well, the Buffalo running backs to 53 yards and 1 touchdown. The week before that, Dallas, 43 yards, no touchdowns, but then Las Vegas, 26 and a touchdown, and then Kansas City, 48 and a touchdown, and that was when Pacheco was playing. So Baltimore's run defense is legit, and now Zach Moss, who has been losing carries the last couple weeks to Chase Brown, well, not necessarily carries, but touches to an extent and snap count. And it's kind of become more of a 50-50 workload with Chase Brown than it has at the beginning of the season. And now they're coming against the best run defense in the NFL. I'm right there with Clay on this. I think that there's a solid chance that he just doesn't have a great game this week, him or Chase Brown. I think the Cincinnati relies on passing the ball a lot more, which is the way to attack this Baltimore defense. So I like that pick a lot there, Clay. And then rolling right on into our sleepers at running back. Well, I can tell you right now, my sleeper at running back ain't going to do very well. You know why? Because it's Devin Singletary, who just got ruled out with that groin injury out of nowhere. So we're going to go with a Clay sleeper, and I'm going to talk about him, and then I'm going to pick another one. But Clay's sleeper is actually super great because it's Antonio Gibson, who was just named the starter for New England over Ramondre Stevenson. So excellent pick there, Clay. Going up against, like I said, that Miami run defense that is terrible. And they get Antonio Gibson involved in the pass game, which is excellent. And, I think it's just a great pick. Antonio Gibson's had solid value all year. Being involved in the passing game, he's been very efficient as a runner. I mean, last game he only had 6 for 12, but he had 3 catches for 67 yards. He busted off a big one. A couple games before that, 11 rushes for 96 yards. He's had at least 3 catches in the last 2 weeks. And so I think New England's going to give him a chance to kind of earn some more run in this offense. So, yeah, I like that pick a lot there, Clay. And then, all right, so I'll just back that up with my sleeper is Tyrone Tracy Jr., who is going to get all the extra work for Devin Singletary. And he is going up against the Seattle defense, who has been okay, but last week against Detroit, they gave up 118 yards and three touchdowns to the running back. And Tyrone Tracy is kind of a workhorse combo back where he is great in the passing, in the catching, in the receiving game, but also he's not a bad runner in between the tackles. So this could be very beneficial. Tracy's going to get a lot of run in this offense. I think he's probably going to get probably 70 to 80% of the snaps out of this backfield, just because he's been the only other one that's getting a lot of the work other than Devin Singletary. So that's my sleepers, Tyrone Tracy at Seattle. And then Clay's was Antonio Gibson. So just running back through running backs. Clay's start is Javonte Williams. Mine is DeAndre Swift. His sit is Zach Moss as well as mine. My sleeper is Tyrone Tracy Jr. at Seattle, and Clay's sleeper is Antonio Gibson, New England at home against Miami. And then going right on into wide receivers. Okay, guys. So my start is going to be Jaden Reed at the Los Angeles Rams. And this just keeps getting better and better for him. Because when I was going through injuries, I don't know if you were paying attention, but Dobbs is doubtful and Christian Watson's doubtful. So that is great news for Jaden Reed and Dontavion Hicks and Tucker Kraft, who I do like a lot this week. I did not have on this list anywhere that I know of, but let's see. Clay did not put him on there either, but Tucker Kraft is somebody that I would highly think about at the tight end position as well, with those people being out. But anyway, back to Jaden Reed, who has been a very efficient and very good, explosive player so far this year. Because, I mean, that's the best way I can put it, because he hasn't just gotten a whole bunch of usage, but what he gets, he's all 7 catches for 139 yards and touchdown. All right. In week 1, 4 catches for 138 yards and touchdown. And then not only that, he's getting at least 1 to 2 carries each game, and he's ripping them off for chunk plays. Like week 1 carry for 33 yards, touchdown. Week 2, 2 carries for 37 yards. Week 3, 2 carries for 19 yards. That's efficient stuff. They are getting him involved any way they can. He's the number 6 running wide receiver in the NFL right now. And he is getting a Rams secondary that is jacked up, honestly. The only people they didn't give up at least 37 points to wide receivers to was Chicago, which is crazy. But they probably didn't throw the ball a ton because DeAndre Swift ran the ball all over them. But anyway, they gave up 235 yards and 3 touchdowns to San Francisco in week 3, and 170 of those and all 3 touchdowns went to Jawan Jennings. And I'll be honest, Jaden Reed could do that again. He could put up 170 and 3 touchdowns easy. With as efficient as he is and as explosive, I think he gets heavily involved. I just think he is somebody that's going to have a big week this week. Clay's start at wide receiver is Amari Cooper. And that probably goes hand in hand with them going up against the Washington defense, who's just terrible, and Deshaun Watson getting a little bit more efficient. And, I think he just, Amari Cooper's always had this boom or bust the last several years, and that's what keeps him relevant. He had a boom game back against the Giants for 7 for 86 and 2 touchdowns with 12 targets. Last week, kind of a bummer, 4 for 35 on 8 targets, but you know what that means? He's probably in for another boom game this week against the second to worst secondary in the NFL and DST against wide receivers. So I love that pick there, Clay. I think Amari Cooper has a solid chance, him and Watson. I think that's probably could be a shootout against Cleveland and Washington there. So I like that pick a lot there, Clay. My sit at wide receiver is going to be Zay Flowers. Okay. I mean, what? So he was kind of on fire to start the season. 6 for 37 with 10 targets and 2 carries in week 1. Week 2 against Las Vegas, 7 catches for 91 yards on 11 targets and touchdown against Vegas. Well, the last 2 weeks, he has been almost non-existent. 4 targets, 3 catches for 20 yards. And then last week against Buffalo, 2 targets, 1 catch for 10 yards. That just screams something's going on there. Now he gets Cincinnati, who's not a great defensive group for the second. They're middle of the pack. They're 15th in the league, DST, against wide receivers. And Carolina just kind of lit them up. But we're seeing Baltimore only throw the ball 15, 18 times a game or whatever it is. Like, and Zay Flowers is just not being as involved. Like, their number one corner is taking him away, and they're just like, fine, we'll run the ball with Derrick Henry down your throat, and then we're going to let Lamar run the ball some more, and then we're going to let Justice Hill run the ball, and then we're going to let Justice Hill catch about 7 catches of the 18 that we throw, and then we might throw about 2 or 3 to Zay Flowers, 2 or 3 to Rashad Bateman, 2 or 3 to, likely 2 or 3 to Andrews, and then that's it. And I just don't think you can start that right now with Zay Flowers. So, I mean, if you got another option on your bench, you probably should go with it. And that's just my opinion there. And then Clay's sit is Tyreek Hill. Now, Clay, I get it, man. And I mean, he's going up against New England, who ain't been great against wide receivers. Okay. And I mean, I know Skylar Thompson or Joe Bob, Jingo White, Billy Joe Tolliver is going to be the quarterback at Miami, whoever it is. I don't know who it is, but whoever it is, it ain't Tua, and they ain't looked the same since he got knocked out. But Tyreek Hill is like so like it takes him one play, and he's had 3 bad weeks. All right, 6 points, 7 points, 8 points, but he's still involved. Now he has not had the targets, but last week he had 3 rushes. All right, and 7 targets, 4 for 23. I get it, and they're probably going to run the ball some more. But man, I get you don't count on him like you did, but I just don't see how you can sit him, Clay. I don't know who you got on your bench that you feel a lot more comfortable on that could win you your week other than Tyreek Hill. And I know it's going to be hard now, but he can still bust that 80-yard run and then maybe bust another 70-yard catch for 2 touchdowns. And then you're looking at somebody who's got 30-something points on your bench. I mean, he's going to be heavily involved. Mike McDaniel is going to be Tyreek Hill is going to be one of his focal points, if not his main focal point, him or A-Chain in this offense. And I don't know. It's just me. I get it. He hadn't been great, but I don't think he's somebody you can sit, in my opinion. But that's Clay's sit this week is Tyreek Hill. And let's go to sleepers. Mine is Brian Thomas Jr., old LSU prospect going down there in the dumpster fire that is Jacksonville, going up against Indianapolis this week. And let's just be honest, Indianapolis, their whole offense and defense has just been pretty terrible. And Brian Thomas has gotten better and better each week. I mean, the first 2 weeks he had 4 targets in each of them, but 4 for 47 and then 2 for 94. 4 for 47 for a touchdown. And then the next week, week 3, 9 targets, 5 catches for 48 yards. A little bit more involvement there. Last week, 9 targets, 6 catches, 86 yards, a touchdown, 1 carry for 13 yards. I think you can see a trend of him slowly getting more and more involved, and I think he's going to become a focal point in this offense as Brian Thomas Jr. I mean, you look at him on the field, he passes the eye test 100%. Like, he gets open easily, and Lawrence is looking for him, and he is open. I mean, and now he's going up against the Indianapolis Colts defense is 23rd in the league, DST against wide receivers, and the only team that hasn't really put up buku numbers against him was Pittsburgh last week. And Pittsburgh's passing offense, I mean, Fields is not throwing the ball a ton. I mean, they put up 151 yards, But before that, Chicago put up 212 and a touchdown. Green Bay didn't put up a 97 and a touchdown, but that's because they ran the ball and scored. Their defense scored so many points they didn't have to do anything. And then week 1, Houston put up 193 and 2 touchdowns. So Trevor Lawrence is not completely incompetent at quarterback. He ain't been what we thought, but he still can get the ball to his playmakers efficiently. And I think Brian Thomas is that primary playmaker in this offense now. I think he gets heavily involved, and I think he's somebody in bye weeks that you could be starting. Like, you got Amon-Ra St. Brown, you got A.J. Brown, you got Devontae Smith. I think you start Brian Thomas in those spots. No problem. You had Rashee Rice. You got Brian Thomas. I think you plug him into that spot. That's what I'm doing in one of my leagues. So I'm all in on that. I think he's got a solid chance to be very productive for the rest of the season, honestly. And if it was me, to me, he's a buy now. I wouldn't say buy low. He's a buy high. Like, he's a buy at his price because I think he's going up. And so that's somebody like, if I would go Garrett Wilson for him. That's kind of crazy. But, man, if I had Zay Flowers, I'd trade it for him in a heartbeat if somebody do it. Something like that. Maybe somebody that's kind of underperforming a little bit right now. Or just had a big game, but he's underperformed pretty much all year. Like, if Amari Cooper comes out there and has a big game, dude, I'm trading for Brian Thomas right now. I just think he's going to be solid. Clay Sleeper, love this one. Dontavion Wicks. Honestly, I thought about putting him as mine, but I like Brian Thomas more this week. But now after the Christian Watson and Romeo Doubs news, I might like Dontavion Wicks more than Brian Thomas, especially the way Jordan Love's been throwing the ball around the yard. Love that pick right there. And, it's crazy. I guess a lot of people aren't in on him this week. And I don't know why after last week what he did. But I picked him up in all 4 leagues I was in. And I don't think anybody tried to waiver him in any of the leagues I'm in. And I don't know, maybe I'm just getting overexcited about one game. And it could be. But, man, you go back and watch him play that game. He is, open easily. Now, he's got 13 targets. He had several drops. I get he's got some dropsies. But, man, is he explosive. He gets open. He runs crisp routes. He looks good. And if Christian Watson and Dobbs are out, he gets more opportunity. I think he can perform well. With that opportunity, just like he did last week. And I expect a big game from him this week. I'm going to start him in a couple leagues for sure. So I love that pick there, Clay. And that's Clay's sleeper is Dontavion Wicks for the Packers. We're going to go through it one more time. My start at wide receiver is Jayden Reed. And Clay's start is Amari Cooper. My sit is Zay Flowers. Clay's sit is Tyreek Hill. My sleeper is Brian Thomas Jr. Clay's sleeper, Dontavion Wicks. And rolling right on into the tight ends. And my tight end sleeper is going to be Brock Bowers. And I get it. He had a rocket fast start, and everybody was excited, and he said, "Oh, fooled you." Not really, but really I think it's coming back because you know why? Devontae Adams is out. They're going to be looking at the future. They've already played Trey Tucker, who's a young wide receiver they have that's looked promising. Jacoby Myers is still there. But I think it's going to be Brock Bowers and Jacoby Myers. Samir White's out. Alexander Madison's in the backfield. They're just running out of playmakers. And I think they realize Brock Bowers is a playmaker. Heck, last week they gave him a carry at tight end for Pete's sake. We seen him get 8 and 9 targets first couple weeks. Then they kind of tapered off. Well, I don't know if they realized, but I think they won those first couple games. And no, maybe they lost the Chargers, but they beat Baltimore. And then all of a sudden they stopped getting Bowers the ball and they started losing. So I think Bowers gets involved again with Devontae Adams being out. I think he has another chance to, have heavy involvement in this offense. And he, to me, especially at Denver, who is kind of middle of the pack, 17th against tight ends, which tight ends are so skewed right now because no tight ends have really done good. Pat Freiermuth had a good week against them. in week 2, 44 yards and a touchdown. And then Tampa Bay, K. Otton, 8 for 55 in week 3. Last week, Conklin didn't have a great week, 6 for 27, but still had 6 balls. He was able to get open fairly easily. And I think Brock Bowers is better than all those tight ends they faced, honestly. And I think there's a solid chance Gardner Minshew can facilitate and get him the ball. So I like him a lot this week. Clay's start at tight end is going to be Evan Ingram. Well, I hope he plays Clay, because if he don't, he's not going to do very well. Newsflash. But I do see where you're coming from there, Clay. If he does start, I think he gets back on track. Indianapolis is the 30th ranked DST against tight ends, which is second to last. Third to last. I'm sorry. No, third to last, because there's 32 teams, so they're 30th. Third to last. But the last 2 weeks, they have given up big games to tight ends. Chicago, 10 for 97 and a touchdown to Cole Kmet. Pittsburgh last week, 7 for 88 and a touchdown for Pat Freiermuth. Honestly, Evan Ingram is probably better than both them. Maybe not better than Cole Kmet. It's close, but he's definitely better than Pat Freiermuth, in my opinion, and especially as a receiver and an athlete. So I love that pick, Clay. I hope he plays. If he does play, I think there's a solid chance he has a great week. So love that pick there for sure. Sits at tight end. Mine is, speaking of, Cole Kmet versus Carolina. And honestly, it just has to do with Keenan Allen coming back. I was worried about it, but I took a chance on him. I told you to pick him up because he had that big week, but that was when Keenan Allen was out. Well, Keenan Allen's back. He goes back to the dumpster. He pretty much dropped him. Carolina's not great against the tight end, and he might go out and blow it up. Who knows? They had a tough week against New Orleans tight ends in week 1. Gave up 7 for 72 touchdowns between Jawan Johnson and Foster Moreau. But other than that, Chargers, Vegas, Cincinnati, they have not had anybody really do more than about 7-8 points. You could get that out of him, which is going to be probably a low-end tight end one, honestly. And especially him being a sick athlete that he is. But there's just so many mouths to feed there in Chicago. Keenan Allen's back. Rome Odunze, he's back. I think he's going to be back. DJ Moore's, they're trying to get him more involved. They got Swift way more involved with the passing game, which is probably the detriment of Cole Kmet, because last week he only had 3 targets for 3 catches for 34 yards, and I think that's probably what he gets from here on until somebody gets banged up again. So that's my sit is Cole Kmet. Clay's sit is Colby Parkinson. Can't blame him there because he's pretty much had all the opportunity in the world and not done anything with it. And there's a lot of analysts that like him this week. And, I get it, but because Green Bay's not great against the tight end. They've given up, to Tennessee tight ends, 8 for 67 and a touchdown week 3. Week 4, they gave up 4 to 25 to Johnny and a touchdown to Johnny Munt. But Colby Parkinson has he had 5 targets in week 3, 7 targets last week for 4 catches for 33 yards against Chicago in week 4. I see his usage going up, but this Rams offense is pretty much running the ball the most that they can. And Stafford's not throwing it just a ton because they're just lacking playmakers at the receiving level. And Colby Parkinson, I apologize, sorry. Colby Parsons a fine tight end. Great at blocking. He's not a bad pass catcher, but he is not a playmaker at tight end. Not by any means. So when he is out there and there's not any playmakers at wide receiver drawing attention, it's hard for him to get open to get the ball and then do anything with it. So I get that completely there, Clay. I'm right there with you. I'm not a big fan of Parkinson this week. Right there behind you on sitting him. And then sleeper at tight end. Mine is a pretty deep one. It is Eric All Jr. for Cincinnati going up against Baltimore this week. And you're like, well, Mike Gesicki's in Cincinnati. Why are you picking the other tight end? Well, that's because the other tight end, Eric All Jr., has been out targeting and outperforming Mike Gesicki for the last pretty much 3 weeks. Eric Hall has had 4 targets for 4 catches the last 3 weeks in a row. and he gets 4 for 4 every week. I mean, it's almost as good as that McDonald's menu, 4 for 5, but this is 4 for 4. And this week, he gets the second to last tight end matchup, which is the Baltimore Ravens, who have given up the second most points to tight ends in the NFL so far. Week 1, 6 for 71 against Kelsey and Gray. Week 2, 10 for 109 against Bowers. Week 3, 7 for 100 against Dallas tight end that wasn't named Ferguson. It was Schoonover or whatever, Schumacher, whatever his name is. Then week 4, Buffalo, 6 for 47. Only 10 points, but still definitely tight in one territory, 10 points right now. And he's just slowly, you've seen his snap count slowly increase week by week as they've gotten more comfortable with him. Give me 1 second and I'll give you a snap count. All right, so snap count over the last 4 weeks, 24%, 52%, 34%, 60% last week, guys. 60% snap count. That means he's the leading tight end if he's on the field 60% of the time. That means Gesicki is not technically the number one tight end in Cincinnati anymore. And now they're going up against the worst defense, one of the worst defenses in the league against the tight end. And we all know Joe Burrow looks for his tight end. And we already talked about how good their run defense is. So they're going to pass the ball. This could be one of those 40 to 50 pass games for Joe Burrow. And I think Eric All has a great day this week. So that's why he is my sleeper at home against Baltimore. And then sleeper for Clay is going to be Noah Fant, who completely understand this pick. We think Seattle's going to have a great game against the Giants. Noah Fant, we're just waiting for him to break out. He's getting more involved. Week before last against Miami, 6 for 6 for 60 yards. That's 6 targets, 6 catches for 60 yards against Miami. Last week, kind of a step back, but Detroit's defense against tight ends is pretty solid. Only 2 for 26 for 2 targets, but he's still getting involved in the offense. I expect this to be a fairly good game for the Giants. For the Seahawks. New York Giants gave up 7 for 49 last week to Jake Ferguson for 11 points. And I think that is well within the realm of possibility for Noah Fant this week as Geno Smith has gotten more and more comfortable in this new offense. So I like that pick there a lot, Clay. And then also I want to throw out there one last kind of sleeper but start is Tucker Kraft. Like I alluded to earlier, I think he has a big game sheerly from the fact that he's going up against the Rams, who are 23rd in the league against the tight end, which is not great. I mean, and honestly, they've done okay, but they had a big week where they gave up 7 for 85 and a touchdown to Trey McBride. And Tucker Kraft is looking very athletic. Maybe not Trey McBride, but definitely very good. And last week, 9 targets, 6 catches for 53 yards and a touchdown in a shootout against Minnesota. And I don't know if this is going to be a shootout against the Rams or not because Green Bay's defense is pretty solid, but it could be. And either way, the way to attack the Rams is through the air. And or at least in my opinion, as far as rankings go, that's what it says. So I think Tucker Kraft's another solid one this week to look at starting. And just give y'all another option there at tight end because if you're like me, you need all the help you can at tight end. So that's going to round out our position players, just recapping tight end. My start's Brock Bowers. Clay's start is Evan Ingram. My sit is Cole Kmet. Clay's sit is Colby Parkinson. My sleeper is Eric All Jr. for Cincinnati. And Clay's sleeper is Noah Fant. So there's you some picks right there. Start, sit, sleeper. And let me give y'all some defenses that Clay and I like this week and some kickers. And for defense for me, I'm gonna give you 4 of them because there's really 4 really good matchups that I like this week. Number 1 for me has got to be Minnesota against the Jets. I know it's Aaron Rodgers and the Jets, but man, Minnesota gets such good pressure on the quarterback. Aaron Rodgers does not move like he used to. And honestly, every time he gets pressure, he just kind of curls up and falls over like Peyton Manning used to toward the end of his career. So I expect that to be there to be a lot of pressure against Rodgers, him to get frustrated. When Rodgers gets frustrated, normally it does not end well for the offense. And I think there's a solid chance that Minnesota gets right this week, even though they had a good game against Green Bay and then let them come back on them last week. But last week they had 3 interceptions against Jordan Love because of pressure. They gave up a bunch of points, but they also got a lot of pressure on Jordan Love. And I think the same thing happens with Rodgers, and there's honestly could be ugly with that possibility. Clay's DST this week for him is going to be the Patriots defense going up against Miami, who I really get that, Clay, because we have no idea who their starting quarterback's going to be. I think it's going to be Tyler Huntley, but it could be Skylar Thompson. We really don't know. Either way, both of them will be a positive for your defense to go up against. So I like that pick a lot there, Clay. Another defense that I've picked up in a lot of leagues that really, I'll be honest, has flown under the radar for me. Completely missed out on my waiver column, but I had to throw them in here because Denver's defense has been very solid this year. And this week, they're going up against the Raiders at home in Denver. And it is getting that time of the year where playing in Denver is going to be cold. It's going to be windy. And, it's just one of those things where you really don't want to play a lot. Now, Denver's owned in 70% of leagues, but they are the number 2 ranked defense in fantasy, I believe, right now. They're the number 1 ranked defense currently. And that probably has a lot to do with them getting 7 sacks against Tampa Bay, 5 sacks last week against the Jets, and a couple turnovers, but they're not giving up a ton of points either. They've only given up more than 13 points once this year. That was against Seattle in week 1. And they still had 2 safeties, 2 sacks, a fumble recovery, and an interception in that game. So, I mean, really, this Denver defense is looking really salty. And then they have great matchups coming up. They got Las Vegas. They got the Chargers. They got New Orleans, who has been looking like a plus matchup. Then they got Carolina. Then they got Baltimore, who is good, but we have seen Lamar Jackson take sacks and make mistakes. And if they're good enough against the run, could be a decent matchup for them. Then Kansas City, not been a great offense. And then Atlanta, who I probably wouldn't want to go up against Atlanta after Thursday night. No. They look like by the time you get to them in week 11, it might be time to look somewhere else. But then they got Las Vegas, Cleveland, Indianapolis, Chargers, Cincinnati, Kansas. I mean, honestly, Denver's defense has a great schedule for the rest of the season coming up. So that's why I had to throw them in here. Definitely somebody to look, see if they're available. I was able to get them in all 3 of my leagues. Kind of crazy because people just don't associate good defense with Denver right now. They got Patrick Surtain, but they don't really have anybody else they're talking about. But Surtain is locking it down, and the rest of this defense is performing with him. So gotta love Denver's defense at home against Las Vegas this week. Then Chicago, owning 37% of leagues, going up against Carolina at home. Chicago's number 4 DST so far this year. They're playing Chicago in Chicago, which always makes for typically a run-heavy script this time of the year. So it's getting cold, it's getting windy, and that normally favors the DSTs. Chicago's offense has been fairly run-heavy a little bit this last couple weeks, and that's normally more productive and leads to more rest for the defense. It also slows the game down, shortens the amount of possessions there are in the game, which benefits the defense also. And also Carolina has been better, but I still think it's tough for them in Chicago. So I like Chicago's chance to create some turnovers, and I like for it to be a lower scoring, run-heavy game. So like Chicago, and then going back to one of my other defenses, 2 of my favorite defenses this year, Minnesota and Green Bay. I mean, same division, crazy, but Green Bay at the Rams. Green Bay has, with another interception, 2 fumble recovers this past week. They're continuing to pile up takeaways. The Rams have been struggling on offense. They're losing all their pass catchers, for Pete's sake. Lost half their offensive line. Like, Green Bay's going to get some pressure. They're going to create some havoc. And I really think Green Bay's DST is going to get some more turnovers this week against Stafford and the Rams. And really, I like them the rest of the season just as much as I do Minnesota and Denver. I mean, all these DSTs right here have been solid all year, and they're pretty much available every week. If any of these guys have a decent matchup, like they do, I mean, they all have a decent matchup this week, but any of them have a decent matchup each week, they're definitely a high streamer in my book. If not somebody I just hang on to and play. But that's going to round out the DSTs and then kickers. Some of the same kickers from last week, couple new ones. Chris Boswell, number 2 kicker, owning 21% of leagues for Pittsburgh at Indianapolis this week in the Dome. So like that pick a lot there. Austin Seibert is the kicker for Washington at home versus Cleveland. He missed the first game of the season because he got signed after their kicker got hurt. So he's only played in 3 games, and he's the number 5 kicker currently because they're moving the ball that much. He's getting that much opportunity, that many extra points, and he has not missed yet this year, which means he'll probably miss 3 this weekend because I picked him up pretty much all my leagues. But Austin Seibert, Washington at home against Cleveland. Love that one. And then Young Ho Koo for me. Played on Thursday night. My bad, guys. I had him on the waiver wire episode, so if you were listening, you picked him up, and he had like 15 points because I went up against him in one league. He put up 15 on Thursday night against Buffalo. I mean, not Buffalo, against Tampa Bay at home. So Young Ho Koo was a good start. I hope you picked him up and started him. If you didn't, he's probably somebody you should have and probably start the rest of the year being kicking in the Dome, especially the way this Atlanta offense looks. And then Clay's pickup for kicker is Joshua Carty, which I believe is the kicker for the Rams. Let me double check. Who has been very good this year. Let's see, where's he at? Yep, Joshua Carty, kicker for the Rams, number 13 kicker on the year. Had 14 points last week at Chicago. This week he's at home. He also kicks. It's not a dome, but it's a controlled atmosphere in Los Angeles. It's as close to a dome as you can get. He's never going to have a bad weather scenario at this stadium in Los Angeles. So I love that pickup there, and probably for the rest going forward because he's going to have some opportunity. He had 9 points week 1, 4 points week 2, 9 points week 3, and then 14 points last week at Chicago. And he had a 50-yarder last week. So you got to love that accuracy as well. So Joshua Carty is Clay's pickup going up against Green Bay Packers at home this week. So there are your picks at kicker and DST. And that's going to round out our Start Sit Sleeper episode for week 5 coming up. So we appreciate everybody listening. Thank you for all our sponsors, Big Reed BBQ, Mimi's Children's Boutique, Crown Detailing. We appreciate y'all. Be with the prayer request, Nora K, Crew Tidwell, Mama T, and the Hurricane Helene victims. And also, we just thank y'all, our listeners. Please like, subscribe, download, share the podcast. Give us some feedback. Give us some comments. Just got to let us know what you think. And we just appreciate all y'all listening. We hope you're enjoying it. I hope you're helping. It's helping you. You know, I feel like I've been a little bit more accurate this year than I have in the past. I try to follow up on some of my picks. And, you know, it's kind of a crazy year, especially at tight end. But it's been a lot of fun so far. A little unpredictable, but a lot of fun. I feel like we're getting a little bit more bead on a lot of these teams. And how they're performing. So hopefully we get a little bit more accurate picks for y'all and we can kind of lead y'all in the right direction. So, but thank you to everybody. We appreciate y'all, and y'all keep chasing that trophy.
This ain't how it's supposed to be. It should be just you and me. I feel